Coming up on this episode, I reveal a few content creator secrets. From modifying your on screen perception to getting out of that pesky 200 view jail. I try to give you my own experience over the last year and a half and kind of reveal as much as I can, or at least as much as comes to mind. But if there's anything that I've missed out or anything that you'd like to know, please comment it below. Other than that, let's go get into this episode. What's going on, beautiful people? This is the Perspective Chasers podcast. I'm your host, John, and on this episode, I'm going to be giving away some content creator secrets. Now, I've been doing this over a year and a half now, and I've kind of realized a few things along the way, and it's changed my perception not only of my own content, but other people's as well. And I think there's a lot of value to be found there, and those skills ain't just valuable to somebody that's looking to create content. I think they're transferable to various aspects of life. Like many skills or tools in life, they can be transferred to various aspects. They don't have to be used in one area repeatedly and exclusively. So by taking some time to explore some of the kind of behind the scene areas, you kind of see that there's a lot more that goes on that you don't realize. Things come together more often than not at last minute for most things, whether that be a podcast, a building, whatever project you want to think about. It's always scattered around in various pieces and all over the gaff until the very last minute when it's all brought together. And people only ever see that last result of when it's all brought together. When you think about like a shoe, how many pieces individually is there to a shoe? But when it's sold to a person, you only get two of them. You only got 2 feet, that's all you need. So there's so many aspects of life that have all of these little intricate parts that we don't see. And creating content is riddled with them, whether it be people cutting out things, which sometimes you have to do, like whether it be technical difficulties or personal difficulties. Like it might even happen in this episode, but on previous episodes, I've had a cough lately, so I've been trying to edit out that cough so it don't kind of interrupt the kind of viewer experience and things like that. But even when you look at films, like there's director's cuts of films and various cuts of films that like people, even remakes and different takes on films or whatever else, like there's a lot of ways, like, or a lot of things that kind of go unseen or get left on the cutting room floor, and some that don't make it out. And because of that, it's always, at least to me anyway, kind of not taints your perception in a negative way, but it just kind of misleads a little. And in the area of like film and that, you are meant to mislead, at least to an extent. It's normally fantasy. But when you're talking about life and when people are looking at a screen and they compare themselves to other people and they, they I suppose you see it a lot of the time where they kind of show you a little behind the scenes clip of the people that do the day in the life content, where they're like setting up a camera and then running forward and then grabbing the camera and then doing the run again. And it's all backwards and forwards and then it all comes together and it's all seamless and smooth. Like, again, it's all sporadic and comes together last minute. A lot of life is like that. But because that outward perception is always, here's the final product, most people are deterred from even trying. Like everything builds slowly over time. You get better at doing things over time. Like if you go back to like the first few episodes of this podcast, like there was so much that I thought I knew. I thought it was easy. I thought, okay, this is what I'm going to contend with. But I was wrong in so many regards. But it didn't deter me. Like by the time I kind of realized what I was in for, I was kind of in too deep. And it's you don't start with all of the answers or whatever else. Like again, it's a game of perception. So wherever you think I may be, I'm not. Realistically. Like I'm actually in a room in my house just talking away, just gibberish. To me, this is literally just a room in my house. But on the perception of the podcast, it's a studio. And although I treat it like a studio and everything else, it's still just a room. If I weren't doing the podcast in here, if I could have it as a painting studio or a spare bedroom or whatever. But I've used it for this purpose to channel this way, but the outward perception is you see a very small portion of that. So you don't know what I'm looking at other than there's a camera facing me. So, I mean, somebody really clever might be able to look at my glasses and get a reflection or whatever else, but most people can't perceive what I'm looking at. But you will perceive me and you'll see the show and everything else, but you can't see the camera. You can see the microphone maybe, but again, it's a game of perception. By the time I get to the end of this, I'm going to take this raw footage, add a few little snippets and edits to it or whatever else, clean it up a little bit. So even that is not going to be the original raw footage that you see. As much as I try to keep it as raw as I can because I like the coherency of it, I like the unscripted nature of it, and that you can see that sometimes I stop and pause and I stutter and and I was going through an edit and I said like about 4 times in 30 seconds and I annoyed myself. I'm probably annoying you guys sometimes, but that's just life. Sometimes that happens. You need filler words, and there's something to being able to hold that silence. But in the game of content, it's about, a lot of it is about attention and how quick can something happen. So like, I suppose this will be a secret, or not a secret, whatever you want to call it. So a lot of people say that like, oh, do this to get out the 200 view video. It's nonsense. Like, trust me, at this point, I've tried posting multiple times a day, and I've got shadow banned for it. I've tried posting here and there, and this, that, and everything else. All you can do is listen to the people that you're trying to engage with. Make sure that you're improving your content constantly because you're forever going to be growing and people's attention is going to forever be moving. So actually build and work on your own product. Look where the attention is going and understand how you can engage with that. Like, it's not to say that you, like, literally, I made the mistake and I ended up being shadow banned. And it won't, I tried to post 6 videos on multiple platforms every single day, and it was like, no, you're spam, mate. And I got shut down. Sounds like, okay, cool, dial it back, try something else. But the thing is, those videos and when people are saying, do this to get out the 200 view jail, that video in itself is a trap. That's getting them out the 200 view jail, not you. So like understand, like when you actually go into your engagement, you can see how much retention your video has. Notice that no matter what, if people ain't watching the first couple of seconds of your video, they're not going to watch any of it. So the algorithm's not going to push it. So you could have the best information, the best knowledge in the world. But if you're not getting to it quick enough, yeah, people are going to miss it. So it's about getting to that point. The more you get to that point, the bigger or the better hook that you have, the more engagement that you're going to have. The higher quality of your content, the better it's going to be. The more relevance it has, the more level that people can, oh, damn it, I've lost the word. The more it resonates with people and they can see themselves in your content, the more they're going to engage with it. But that all comes slowly. That's a learning cycle that you go on yourself. You need to learn what your target audience is, what type of people you want to engage with, how you're going to engage with them. Like, everybody's different. It takes time to learn this. It's not just a case of wham bam, thank you, ma'am, do this, do that, you're out the jail. You might get lucky. As always, people win the lottery. But if you want to guarantee yourself to get these places and build up that consistency, you have to put in the work and you have to pay attention and not just do it blindly. It's fine to start out blindly. Like I say, I started out blindly and not knowing what I'm doing, and I'm still starting out blindly. Like, I start up new platforms and all of this nonsense all the time to try to build the podcast bigger and grow it out. And I don't know necessarily what I'm doing when I begin, but I'll figure it out as I go. The biggest thing is I'm not going to learn unless I try. There's nobody here to teach me. There's nobody here to guide and do whatever. So just learn by doing. Sometimes you're going to fail. That's fine. There's a lesson in that. Go again. You just got to keep picking yourself up. The amount of videos that are going to fail doesn't matter. They might fail in the immediate, but a couple of weeks, a couple of days, a couple of months, or whatever else later, they could pay off and they could spike back. It's all about that compounding interest. It's about saving something for a rainy day. Build up an archive, build up an entire catalog so that one day you've got something that people can go back and look at and go, oh, that's what they've been up to. Because one day they will. One day, if you keep on your grind and you keep on your focus, it will all pay off. And people will be like, how did you get there? And you can say, right there. But it takes time to build. And you've got to do this game of your perception and understanding things and building up the quality and your own ideas of yourself over time. It's all slow and like it doesn't happen overnight. Like even now, I feel far more like a podcaster, or as if the podcast is more relevant and a more severe part of my life. But there's still part of my head that goes, you're not, because I don't make money on it yet. And once I do that, once I'm making money on it and I've got a decent following, in my head, I hope anyway, my head should shut up and logically go, okay, cool, now it's officially a podcast, it's your full-time thing, crack on, I'll leave you in peace. But until I get to that milestone, there'll still be that kind of teeter-totter in my head. But that's fine. Having that little bit of imposter syndrome is normal. That means that you're striving for something. It's not something that you want to avoid. It's uncomfortable, yeah, but it's important. So if you're trying to progress and you feel like you're an imposter, good. Go with that feeling because if it sits there long enough, eventually it will go away and you won't feel like that imposter. You'll feel like that is true because you would have made it true. And the same is it with content when you're starting out, especially if you're somebody like myself that I have no experience in media. I have no kind of like business attributes in that sense, or I'm not a celebrity in any way. I'm just a guy talking about life. People don't know me from Adam, but I want to talk about life. So I just have to blindly try and keep doing it and doing it and doing it. All of these like famous actors and politicians and anybody that you want to think that is kind of notable in society was once a nobody. So just keep doing whatever you're doing, no matter what it is, in what vein of life you want to do, just keep pushing at it and you'll get somewhere. Eventually people will notice. There's artists that weren't even ever recognized until they was long dead. It's a shame. Sometimes it happens and hopefully it's not you or I, but that is life. But at least they had a legacy to leave. Like, how many people are just gone with the wind? They have no legacy. They have no work that they leave behind, no children that they leave behind, no remnants of, that they ever existed. I don't know about you, but I don't quite want to live my life like that or leave this world like that. I'd like to leave a kind of little mark that John was here. And if that's my content, then so be it. But at least I feel in the moment I'm doing something. Probably gone a little bit off traffic or off topic in terms of secrets. I'm trying to think of what other secrets there are. Most of this isn't done in the moment. It's done beforehand or in bulk. So like if it wasn't for scheduling things and everything else, I definitely wouldn't be able to post as much content as I do. Like learning to kind of sit down and get yourself ahead, put in the work and realize that you've kind of that for me, I'll sit down on a Monday and I'll do all of my shorts for the week if I can. I'll edit them up while little one's at school. I'll upload them so everything's scheduled. So then I only have to worry about doing the main episodes. So while I'm going about life, doing life with little one or going to work or whatever it is I'm doing, the shorts automatically get uploaded, and once I've done the episodes, they automatically get uploaded as well. So I'm not sitting at the computer manually posting every single video. I don't have time for that. Nobody would have. So learning kind of ways to manage it and kind of make it work for you. Again, that's not going to be for everybody. Sometimes I'm recording before my daughter gets up. Sometimes I'm recording after she goes to sleep. Sometimes I have a solid routine. It really depends on life. So much of this is figured out on the go. I don't know if that's right or that's what you're meant to do, but that's what I've had to do. For me, every journey is going to be different. You're going to have to see what your obstacles are. You may have children, you may not have children, you may have other commitments in life. You may work more than I do or have uh, whatever other commitments, whatever it is. Like everybody has their own barriers that they've got to figure out, that they've got to conquer, they've got to overcome. But they can be overcome. You've just got to sit down and think about them long enough. Sometimes you have to swallow your pride or um, lower your expectations or just lower what it is what you want. Like even when I started this podcast, there there was a kind of minimum level that I wanted to start at. And I know I've said this before, but I want to say it again. And until I had that minimum level, I didn't want to start the podcast because in my head it didn't look right, and I just wouldn't have been comfortable. So if you have a situation like that, fair enough, make yourself comfortable, but make sure you do the work. Even then, what I was comfortable with, I won't be comfortable with now. Like the silly little things like my lights. So having the lights lit up on the background makes the image itself more catching to the eye. If you look back on some of the starter episodes when I just had the panels, it's a very dull background. So adding little features and building things up over time, it makes the screen dynamic and it makes things more engaging. But that's added over time. I didn't have all of that stuff at the beginning. I've built up other aspects of the kind of studio in various degrees over time that the camera doesn't always see, but it kind of benefits from, or the podcast itself will benefit from. But again, it's built slowly over time. It's not going to happen overnight. It's the same with like a building. It starts with scaffolding and this, that, and everything else, temporary structures that don't quite look pretty and they ain't quite what you want, but it gets you to where you want to be. And eventually those scaffolding bars come down, the structure is revealed, and there you are. Voila, it's beautiful, you're happy. But you've got to give it that time. Sometimes you've got to be that ugly duckling before you sprout into a beautiful swan. But it's literally just that. Sometimes you just have to put in the work. I don't know if there's any other secrets. I might have to wrap this bad boy up there if I haven't got any more. Um, so perception isn't always what it looks like. You don't know what I see. The scheduling, I'm not always doing it manually. Most of the time I'm doing it automatically with like pre-uploads. Um, Mental warm-ups normally, so that's something I haven't actually touched on. So the mental warm-ups, I added that in as so before the podcast, when me and Dave do episodes, we talk back and forth and try to get our brains mentally warm for the episode itself. But that doesn't always work because we're bros, so we're talking about like our general life and da 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 da. So the whole idea of the mental warm-up on our double episodes is to get us into that framework of talking talking back and forth and sharing ideas or whatever else. So whether it be a hypothetical question, a did you know, or whatever else we end up coming up with over time, it puts us in that state where we're kind of ready to talk. And that was because I noticed on previous episodes, just our levels of engagement sometimes were a little bit off. Like sometimes one of us would want to talk about something and the other one wouldn't be quite connected yet, or the other way around. So you take, again, you just look at things and you analyze and you go, okay, cool, how can we adjust this? How can we adapt this? And it's turned out to be a segment that I quite look forward to. Like the did you knows and all of that are always fairly interesting, at least to myself. The hypothetical questions can always add a fun aspect to it, or you could be serious and kind of go down that vein. But there's always various ways in which you can kind of go with it. And then you've got the topic that for the actual main episode. So my mate told me a long time ago about building structure, but I just didn't know the structure to build, how to do it, or whatever else. And again, you figure it out over time. You find your own kind of fit, what fits you well. And it only comes by doing that, finding your own groove, walking that path time and time and time again. Eventually you get in your groove and you're like, okay, cool, this works well, this fits in here. I like doing this, I don't like doing that, da 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 da. But it all starts with that trying. It's like one of my first episodes was called like Start Stupid. Well, not one of my first ones, but amongst those bunch. And I still stand by that. Like, and I love that title because it has that double meaning of like start stupid and start stupid. Like you start out stupid in so many regards. But as long as you start, you get less stupid. And that kind of eases off and the road gets easier over time. But yeah, I think I'm gonna wrap this bad boy up there because I just had a coughing fit and my voice is going now, and yeah, it's not gonna be pleasant. So the seed for this episode is gonna be take some time to look at the things that you consume and see how they're constructed, whether it be content or food or fashion or whatever else. Look at these little pieces that make up the bigger picture and see how many different things you notice like that. See how many more little kind of triggers in life that you notice, or how many different kind of things stand out to you when you look at the little things that make them up instead of taking them as a whole. All the best, and I'll catch you on the next one.